Hi, this is Dave with Zippy Flies at Tailwater Outfitters, and today we're going to tie the deer hair split crab. Okay, so to begin this fly, the first thing we're going to do is take our hook, which today is an Ahrex SA220 streamer hook in size 4. It's a great little hook. And we're going to modify it slightly by bending the hook eye. This is going to help with, once our leader's attached to this fly, if we start moving it before it hits the bottom, it'll assist the pattern in turning right side up. So what I've got is I have a pair of needle nose pliers. This is a cheap pair that I've got, I don't know where, but they're nice because they're flat on the inside. They won't mar up any of the finish of the hook. And I'm going to just give it a healthy bend. And there's no specific angle, but you can see there's a decent noticeable bend in the hook eye. Again, totally for performance while fishing the fly. So I'll get this put in my hook, or in the jaws of my vise. We'll just keep it nice and flat. And the first step is just going to be to lay down, a healthy thread base, mostly because yes, we will tie in our flat scrap product, but we want a nice base that we can allow our adhesives to adhere to. So you don't have to overthink this, but I kind of like it when it almost looks like there's threads like you'd see on a bolt or something like that. So there's lots of little nooks and crannies for everything to grab onto. It'll increase the surface area. So we've got our hook in, it's prepped, ready to go. The next thing we're going to do is get our crab parts. This is a flat scrap split crab in size small, again with the size 4 hook. And these are a bicolor product. So fortunately, Chris Adams and his team down there at Flatscraft make these up for us. It takes a little longer, just in that... I think he makes them, on an as-needed basis. But what's great about it is same price as the regular ones, but of course it's multicolored. So if you don't want to have to become an artist and what spare time you got to figure out how to make these a little bit more realistic, they've done almost all the work for you, or arguably all of it. So anyhow, that's what we're going to key in on today. And of course, our hook is inverted right now. And again, like all the flat scrap products, there's one side that has some like peaks and valleys in it, and one side that's flat. And I want my peaks and valleys to be upwards, so I can right side my hook. And then you'll notice there's this spine that's going to go right down the hook shank, and then this gap right here is where our hook the bend of the hook will be. This is a really amazing product in that, yes, it is not symmetrical, but the amount of drag on this side versus this side is the same. Even though it looks like it's counterintuitive, they spent a lot of time developing this crab pattern, and that's one of the cool things about Flatscraft is they didn't just go, that looks good, let's just make that. These have been tested on the water, so the R&D has been done for you, provided that we assemble them correctly. So I'm just going to get a couple wraps on there. Totally not technically necessary, but I always like to put just a little X wrap on the ends, and that's a Dave thing. I can't help it. I just like that. And again, we're going to have a lot of product over top of all this, so your thread wraps don't need to be super pretty. I'm just making sure that I've got this exactly where I want it, so I have that ability to move it around a little bit as I go. And I'm trying to make sure that as I place this, I'm really making sure that I've got some room at the end for a weed guard, if you're going to have one. And I plan on using this here in the Tampa Bay area. So I want that weed guard. If you don't need a weed guard, that's great for you. I am going to put a healthy number of wraps on here just because when I go to do my carapace, which is going to be deer hair today, I want to make sure that I got as relative a smooth area for the deer. I'm not really going to spin it. I'm going to stack it, but still, nonetheless. And that's pretty solid right there. Again, things I'm looking for is just that I'm not over tightening this. Again, we're going to be using some adhesive. It's not going to go anywhere when it's all done, but it's pretty symmetrical. Again, I can manipulate it with my hands a little bit. I'm not majorly twisted, and I've got just enough room for my weed guard. It's a little tight there, but we will make it work. So next step is the carapace itself. And what I'm going to use today is I've got some deer belly hair from the Fly Hair Company. What I'm going to use is this root beer color, just because I think it kind of matches the orange and the brown. It's not exactly brown. It's not exactly the orange, so it'll all kind of stand out. And, you know, working with deer belly hair, spinning flies, again, is different from what we're going to do right now. But stacking's a little bit easier. And, you know, if you've never done it before, it can be a little bit frustrating. But that's okay. All of this fly tying stuff was frustrating the first time you got messing around with it. But I'm going to get a healthy clump. I'm going to make a mess here. That's okay. And you can kind of see this is definitely not going to be enough, but that's okay. I'll probably do 2 stacks. So instead of having this huge clump, trying to tie it down and it fights me, I'm just going to do a clump by my trailing claws and then a clump on the bent arm claw, if you will. So we'll make it easy on ourselves. And what I've done is I like to have my thread roughly about the elbow of this first claw, the dragging claw, and I'll set the hair kind of around the hook, transfer it to my left hand, and I've got some stragglers. Excuse me, I'm fighting some allergies, folks. So I apologize for the coughing on your transmission here. And I'm going to go loose around once, basically 0 pressure. And I'm going to go a second time, and I'll even go one more loose. And then I'm going to quickly, pinching with my left hand. I'm holding this tight like I'm pinning my kid brother to the ground, right? And there we go. Now you can see as you pull it tight, it'll flare. If I try to do that when I'm first pulling on this, there's a pretty good chance you could break your thread, and it's a tight pinch point, that sort of stuff. So, and I didn't mention, but this is just some Danville's flat wax. It's 210 denier. And so I've got one clump there, and you can see it looks pretty good on the back half. So all I'm going to do, like I said before, instead of tackling this all at once, we're going to do it in 2 steps. So I'll get a second clump of hair, find a good spot on this patch to get some. There we go. That looks good. Try to do it up here where y'all can see. Cut it down real close to my hide. I'm going to make a mess when I trim this. And these are just my everyday razor scissors I do all my tying with. There's definitely more in this. I'm going to pull some of the stragglers out of the way. And you'll see I've been doing my tips to the rear. It's not going to matter. We're going to trim this. So if you got it going one way or the other, again, it really does not matter. But I'm going to lift these clumps up out of the way a little bit. And then I'm going to stack this right in next to it. But I am going to advance the thread so that I'm in between my crab leg here and the clump that I've got. So I should have done that just before I messed with this hair. So my apologies on that. The trick really here is just to work around the claws. 2. 2 is actually plenty, but I'm going to do 3. I'm going to pull it in real tight. And I mean, it's a total mess right now. I mean, this is a train wreck in the jaws of my vise. But I expect that. It should not look pretty right now. I don't know, it looks like some kind of crazy alien lice that Chewbacca would have on him or something. I don't know. And I'm just advanced forward of the claws. Got a couple wraps just underneath the just by the hook eye. And you could add your weed guard now. It's going to make life significantly difficult, more difficult than it normally would be otherwise. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to whip finish this and remove my thread just so everything's going to be out of my way. And when we do our weed guard, we can restart our thread enough to get it on there. So there we go. It'll be a little tricky to get this going. There we go. This is one of those times I haven't done a lot of hand whip finishing. I really just prefer to use the whip finish tool. But if you're a hand whip finisher, you probably would sail through that. So that's out of our way, and we're style it. So I'm just going to kind of double check. I've got some spinach there. Things have moved around on me a little. And I'm going to get a little waste. Well, I was going to use a waste basket underneath here, but it doesn't matter for the video. I would rather have good contrast so y'all can see. To trim this, you can use a fresh razor blade. Those can be great, and you can move in quickly. And you know, we're not packing a lot of hair in here. We're just using enough to make a shape. So I'm not going to use a razor blade. I'm just going to use a good pair of scissors. So you know, if you're relatively new to fly tying, I really recommend you have your all-around pair of scissors, and you're probably going to have at least one nice pair of scissors, the kind that your wife or husband or significant other knows to never ever touch. And so that's what I've got here. These happen to be some scissors made by Enrico Pugliese, or offered by them. I'm a big fan of these. I think they're awesome. So what I'm going to do is kind of come in here about halfway up the hook gate and just give it a healthy snip, and I don't have to make it perfect out of the gate. And if you look closely, the fish will never notice this, but that's where my first clump, the center of my first clump, center of my second clump. So you can see it because we didn't pack it in to make it perfectly uniform like I would, say, with a top water like bass popper or something like that. So I'm going to get this down a little lower, and I'm mostly just focusing on making this flat. And down to a point where I'm comfortable that I've got enough gape in the hook here that I'll hook up when I get my redfish eat. Notice I said when, just power of positive thinking there, I guess. I'm going to take my bodkin and just kind of make sure that this is spread out nice and even. Seems like every time I think I've got it trimmed just how I want it, I'll find a little bit more. Now I'll probably come in here above my crab parts, because I don't want to go cutting off some legs. And just behind my hook eye, I'll take a piece off there. So that kind of defines that side of the crab carapace. I'm going to do the same thing over here. No crab parts. And that's not perfect, but again, it doesn't have to be that straight cut. Very cliche, but you know, once you cut it off, it's off. So just kind of take your time. This side, I'm going to go pretty almost straight across. How you want to shape it, obviously you can make it mimic the forage that's in your area. And I'm going to go somewhere about there. When I'm looking at the shape of the carapace, it's not in relation to the hook so much as it is the crab parts, of course. That's looking pretty good. I got some stray hairs that are kind of driving me a little bit nuts. Would never really matter for fishability, but... Alright, so I kind of got pretty much a straight cut across. Not perfect. Then on the back here, because we did a straight cut on both the left, my left and my right, or vice versa for you. Now what I'm going to do is make a cut here and another one here. So we'll have pretty much flat and then almost a bit of a teardrop on the back side. So something about there. Pull these crab parts down out of the way. There we go. And you know, they don't have to be straight cuts. I might even round this out a little bit. It seems to me, at least how when I look at something and go, yeah, that's a good crab shape. I like it being a little bit shorter on the side. It seems like and it would impact how it moves, but ideally it'd be equal drag on both sides. But it just seems to look a little better when I make this side a little bit shorter. And I got some stray ones here. On the bottom side, we're going to be covering all this. So if it's ugly, like this one is right now, doesn't matter. Not that big a deal. And, you know, of course, it goes without saying that using these split crab parts, you don't have to use deer hair. This deer hair could be used on the Mutineer, it could be on the Mandaclarian, or the Mercules, any of them. These are all just another way to make a carapace. So the videos that we've done previously, you can mix and match these techniques if you like this. You can take this deer hair and you can mix two different colors together. So if you wanted something like brown and an orange all mixed in here, you can make that happen. You could have brown and put an orange spot in the middle. So, there's lots of possibilities, which is, kind of adds to the fun of working with the Flatscraft stuff. There's just not an infinite, but just the amount of options are pretty much endless. And so you can start to see that shape take place. More flat on the front, a little bit of angles on the back. And it's pretty good. Again, I'm not going to sweat the exactness too much. And now I'm mostly looking at, hey, do I have a decent gap in there? And I'm just going to work my way down. Now be careful. If you cut down too low, and even though we cinched our thread down tight when we stacked this deer hair, that thread is not all the way down on the hook shank. We've got all those bundles of deer hair that are in between. So if I try to go too low, you might all of a sudden see all the hair fall off and you go, oh, shoot. That's the bad news. The good news is your crab parts are still going to be good. You can take all off and just restart with making the carapace again. So it doesn't necessarily ruin the whole fly. I'm pretty close with that right there. And in the interest of kind of brevity here, I'll keep this tutorial moving along. I am going to put a little bit of angle up here. There we go. I really want those crab parts to stick out and be accentuated. All right, we're going to move ahead. Next step is I'm going to add some weight to this pattern. There's a lot of ways that we could do it, but tungsten putty has really made working with these crab flies so much easier. So we get it from Flatscraft. It's 15 grams in a whole package. It will make a lot of flies. I usually tie the flies here in Tampa Bay pretty lightweight because I just don't want a larger splash. Our redfish are so uber sensitive to us, so I usually add a half of a gram to most flies to keep them on the lighter side. But this one, I want this one to be a little bit heavier for slightly deeper water. And then, this could be end up in my permit box too. I haven't decided. So I've got 1 gram that I weighed out ahead of time. You can get a little tiny gram scale, pretty darn inexpensive, which you would want. And then when you're done, we'll talk about this later, but you can label your with a marker or paint pen on the bottom, what the weights are. So if you got the same pattern, same size, color, you can have different weights. And I'm just going to go ahead and rub my tungsten putty into a ball. I like to hit it just kind of down flat. And now I've got a round disc, and I might actually make it a little bit more oblong because I don't want to obviously see this from the top. You could just stick it on here and it'd be fine because we're going to encapsulate it, excuse me, with some UV resin, but we do want to make sure it's going to stay there. So I'm going to use a little E6000 or Zap Goo to put a dab on there. It's nice, very good adhesion properties, but also what's really good is the fact that it's pliable and flexible, which will be good, even though we're going to add the resin that will really hold it in place. So that will take a while to dry. Not super long, it does pretty well, but we're going to keep moving because we're going to start adding our resin around it, and it'll dry with it in place. I like working with a thick UV resin. If all you have is thin, that's okay. You just have to work a little quicker. When I first started messing around with these products, I would try to do the whole thing at once. I really recommend you take it at most in front half and rear half, or maybe even left front, right front, etc., all the way around. Because as we set this, just like with other Flatscraft products, we need to make sure that we've positioned these claws correctly. And this one actually looks pretty good. We want the claws to be pointed upward. So when it hits the water, if it's sideways, it'll immediately cause the crab to turn hook point up and go to the bottom quickly, just like a crab would. So I'm going to do just kind of this forward long claw area first. And I like to put the resin right at the base of the putty. Don't worry about the top just yet. And I put a tiny bit under the claws. Don't go very far out. And because those claws are angled perfectly already, I really probably didn't even need to do that. And then I'm going to set that. I recommend that you actually set the resin a little longer than that. Again, for the video, I'm just trying to be a little bit quicker. Okay, and all I'm going to do now is just press down on this leg to deflect it more than I think I need it to, quite a bit more. So when I set this resin and I let go, it'll flex back up some, but not all the way. So I've got that nice upward curve. That turned out real nice. And then just like it says on the back of your shampoo bottle, we're going to just lather, rinse, and repeat. Do the same thing for the other areas here. Legs are in position. Looks real good. This claw is looking really good. It's actually almost too good. So one of the things that I like to do when I angle this claw is I will make sure that it's really parallel. And it's pretty close, but I am going to kind of bend it around a little bit. So like that, and there we go. And that's real quick. The last thing we're going to do is put a real light coat over your tungsten putty if that's what you're using. You have to put something on it because the stuff is sticky and everything sticks to it. I mean, things that are on planet Earth that mankind didn't even know about. It just attracts everything. But it's very dense, easy to work with. The stuff's amazing. Big fans of it here. One little spot there where I can see it's not quite covered. All right, looks good. So yeah, I've got my Zap Goo or my E6000 on there. Still isn't technically cured yet, but it's all encapsulated and it will cure. And we got a great bond of our weight to both the deer hair and the hook shank. That had all that extra surface area with how we laid down our thread wraps. So pretty well built crab right there. Looks pretty solid. As I look at it, I'm already going, well, I could trim there a little more. But again, that's part of fly tying. I mean, if you've ever tied some game changers and other, trim intensive flies, you can get it perfect, walk away from it. The next day you come walking by and you're like, oh, okay, well, there's some more trimming to do. I might angle the sides a little more here as I look at it. But we're pretty solid for right now. The last thing we're going to do is the eyes. There's a couple ways you can do your eyes. You can get the pre-built stuff, which is what I'm going to use today. Another thing is, some of these UV resins come in different colors. So I like a popular pattern that we sell in the shop here are the mutineer crabs with a flexo tubing body. And I used to make my own shrimp eyes and then, cut the stems like I'm going to do here in a moment with you all. But it's time intensive, but what I ended up doing is just getting some like black UV resin, and I just put a dot because that resin can ooze down into the flexo material and it'll hold it. Now, obviously we're not doing that today, but I could do that here with the deer body. I don't think it worked quite as well as using some shrimp eyes. So I feel like when you're doing the deer body carapace that you're better off to use some shrimp eyes. So I've got some from EP here. These are the size small, happens to be red. I just thought the red would be a nice contrast with the colors we're using. Could be black, could be whatever. And so what I'm going to do for this, I would fight the urge to go straight to resin. Again, I'm going to use some E6000. But before I put the glue on, I'm just going to kind of test fit. I've trimmed some down, you know, and it seems like I always have to trim it a little more than I think. So, and I'll just test fit them. That one's got a good length on it. And this can be a little tedious. This is where, like I was saying with the Flexo carapace, you know, you can do in the resin, the colored resin, and then just doing a couple drops and going is pretty great. That's probably going to work out okay. So what I like to do is just put a little dab on the stem, work up here where you all can see. And then when we get this in place, I'll show you something else that we can do to just make sure we get it where we want it. Stuff can be a little bit stringy, but that looks good. Some tweezers would actually be spectacular right about now, but I didn't bring any in with me to work today. So there's one. And then again, a nice thing about working with this stuff is if something's a little off, we can kind of reposition. What I mean by reposition is really just kind of, you can lean it one way or the other to where you want it to go. And then one trick that I've been doing is once I've leaned it to where I want it to go, is on the bottom side, I'll stick a little small dab of UV resin, right? And then get it to where I want it and give it a quick zap. But that's working out pretty good. I mean, that's pretty solid. I'm just going to leave those for now. I think they're in a pretty good spot. Really, the only thing left to do is add the weed guard if we were going to do that. So step one is I'm going to get all this E6000 stringy goo off of me. I'm going to restart my thread, and this is in here pretty tight, like I referenced before, a little snugger than I wanted it to be, but that's okay. And you know, however you like to do your weed guards, but this is some 20-pound hard mason mono. I've just cut it into a little, you know, more than I'm going to need, but and I like to just put a little pinch in it. Slide it around my hook eye, and I'm going to spin counterclockwise my thread so that as I lift it, my thread wants to jump. I'll move my hands out of the way so this overhead shot will show as I bring it up. See how the thread wants to just jump that way? So it's kind of working for me. And I'm going to go 1, 2, give it another little spin. There we go. 3, a little snug, and then I can pull up on my weed guard, and I know that it's not going anywhere. Again, a little tedious. Getting around by the legs. I kind of did crowd my eyes, so I would pay attention back in the video when I'm doing that part in the very beginning, give myself a little more space. So there's my weed guard, and now I can just whip finish this off and be done. So again, you know, if you're a low time fly tyer, I honestly feel like yes, you can enjoy and make some real nice flies with Flatchcraft, but stuff like this right here, you know, if you're not the greatest whip finisher, this part would be frustrating for you. Again, if you don't crowd the hook eye, it will be quite a bit easier. So weed guard's in place. My crab is obviously moved a little on me. That's good. Eyes are pretty solid. Got one that's moving a little bit on me. So my little trick I mentioned before is just that I would get to the bottom sides here. So I'll just put a tiny little dab of resin to get in a few pieces of the deer hair on the underside, and then I'll do it to both of them. Just touching the bottom, not a lot. final check. Yes, that's where I want them. And then give them a little UV light. So they're not going to go anywhere. And pretty solid little crab fly. This, just call it the split crab, deer hair split crab. You could call it the flexo split crab, or you could call them whatever you want, but that I just tend to call them by the Flatscraft name for the crab part, and then the how I made the carapace. And then the last thing is, I know that this crab, well, all the parts on it, is 1.5 grams all put together. So I've got a white paint pen here. The last thing I'm going to do is just go 1. My paint pen is not playing along real nice. One, and there's a 1.5 on the bottom. So when this is in my fly box and I got a bunch of them, I know exactly what it is. So yeah, if you like this video, like this pattern, we ask that you give us a like. Check out down below. We've got links to all these products in the shop. And subscribe to our channel. That way you'll know whenever we have something new that pops up. We're trying to be pretty good about making a lot of videos for y'all. If there's something in particular you'd like us to do, please let us know.